Good morning. Okay, so the talk I'm going to give today is about architecture, okay, feeling architecture. The theme, as I asked, is, finding peace, okay, finding peace in architecture. Can architecture help you in finding peace? That's the question I asked myself, and I went into this research to see if that was actually the case. And so I realized that, okay, in nature, you find peace, looking at a beautiful valley, a nice horizon on the ocean, and in Atlanta, underneath the cathedrals of the three canopies. But can the built environment, which is what we spend most time in, help you find peace? And that's the question that I've been asking myself, and I looked at different examples. So I started, okay, let's see what peace is. What does it mean? And if you look at the definition, freedom from disturbance, tranquility, calmness, quiet, stillness. For us architects, that sounds like a program for a spiritual building. All these qualities is what you will find in a spiritual building. So I'm thinking, okay, that could be a way to convey peace and with architecture. But we know that when we go into any religious building, whether it's these religions or others, we know we learn how to respect others' beliefs. We're immediately quiet when you walk through the door. You're immediately respectful of the others. You talk quietly. You almost whisper. And is that because we learn it from our parents or from our society, or is that because the architecture conveys that kind of space to you and that kind of solemn space? And the common denominator to all these spaces is that they're big, wide open spaces. There's a lot of art. There's a lot of interest. There is a procession. Sometimes they're circular. Sometimes they're long, like this one. But all of them have a common denominator. It's a big, large space. And in the big, large space, the immediate effect we have is like, wow, right? And then all of a sudden, there's a lot of other people. And then I asked myself, okay, does that mean that every big space, everyone, is going to give us that feeling? So I said, okay, let's look at something downtown. And does that make us feel in peace? I was like, pretty much. It's kind of like a very overwhelming space. Then I looked at this other one, it's another building that sits downtown. And people actually work everywhere on this balconies, and people are quieter in this space. So almost, yes, every big space kind of gives you that kind of feeling of peace. And then this one, which is another building in New York. And they all have a lot of commonalities with those religious spaces that we saw before. They're a little bit more modern, obviously. But, this is an hotel. Imagine how much noise is inside that space. There's a lot of people dining and having fun. There's music. Yet, that space is very overwhelming. This is the Mayor Marquis downtown Atlanta, which is one of our legacy projects. This is normal office building downtown. It's actually where our office is located. And when you get inside that space, you really feel like you're in a nice, peaceful environment. And this is a train station, of all places, a train station where you actually go and you find yourself at peace. There's a lot of people that just go here and linger. And they love the space. They just walk around, they stop, they take a lot of selfies and pictures, because that space is very compelling. And that's, I think, the proof that architecture actually does convey something to our feeling. It resonates with us. But does it mean that every big space does that? How about this one? Right? Well, the reason is because architecture, really architecture, starts with people and goes back to people, and it's scaled to people. This is a hangar. It's made for machines. There's nothing here that relates to people, maybe just that little door to get out. But this is the reason why there's a distinguish between architecture and buildings. This is a building, but architecture is something else, just like there is definitely a lot of different kind of music, and then there's some music that resonates with you. So as I said, architecture starts with people and goes back to them. And people are really the reason of architecture. People are the blood of architecture. If you think of architecture as an organism, We are the cells. We are the white cells and red cells that go up and down the arteries and make it alive. And we bring life into the built environment. If all of this was without people, this whole thing would be dark. It wouldn't have any sense. And that's why, architecture cannot live without people. Obviously, I'm attached to my hometown, but really this is where architecture, I feel, it's at its most expression. It's where life unfolds. It's where people are invited to be part of this built environment and not having necessarily do something. They are there because they feel something. They feel like they are at peace. They're at peace in this, the steps, looking at the city. But again, New Orleans, there's a lot of people enjoying the environment that architecture gives to the street. And it's all that design, it's all that in and out, it's all the activities that are within the architecture that give this kind of feeling. And then obviously in a big metropolis like New York. So architecture, it's really like music. Music affects us inside. And architecture does the same, except that instead of notes, you have patterns, you have lines, you have windows, you have a crescendo of different patterns that articulated in a building, and colors. And there is patterns that go up with peaks and obviously with pauses. And it's really like a music. If this whole thing was a big giant wall, we would be kind of listening to a sound that would be like, right? But this goes up and down, and there's some music to this. And this is like many other cities around the world. There is a rhythm and melody. So, okay, then the question is, okay, now to find peace, do I have to be only in interior spaces, and are small spaces capable of doing that? Do I only find peace in this overwhelming, grand, giant spaces? Well, I feel that you could have peace in small spaces when they're very well designed. They could make you feel warmth, cozy. You can find your own place here where you can actually be calm. And these are just the interiors of, obviously, of Frank Lloyd Wright's house up in Taliesin. And this is an interior-exterior space. It's a house on Sea Island, John Portman's house on Sea Island. And again, it's a built environment. Yes, it's outside. It's the built environment defines the outside, but it's still an outdoor. You are in this kind of new world in which you have water, you have a rhythm of sounds and music and materials that convey that kind of peaceful feeling. So, question is someone able to feel architecture only from its interiors? So do we need to be inside a space? Could we actually feel good outside? Well, yeah, you could feel in this plaza, St. Peter's Square, you can feel the arms of the architecture hugging you. And there's a lot of people that just come here, sometimes for a service, sometimes just to feel at peace. As I said before, yes, there is a way to feel in peace outside of the interiors environment in an urban environment, if the urban environment is designed for people, is designed for people to stay there. And then in a cloister, which is very intimate, yes, it's outdoor, and it's not an interior space. It's kind of like that transition space we saw before. But then, this is a very mystical place. It's up in the Salk Institute in La Jolla. It's an exterior space. And when you walk up there, and invite everybody to go if you can, in La Jolla and in California, you almost have tears to your eyes when you reach out to this courtyard that looks out into the ocean. It's a very peaceful, peaceful place. And then, coming back to Atlanta, the little piazza at the High Museum. It's a great place to hang around and see kids walking and people going, eating, and to the museum. It's really a peaceful place. Question then, okay, so we looked at big spaces, grand spaces of churches, interior spaces, very well designed spaces. Do we need only very well designed spaces? We can't everybody have an amazing design spaces, but do you need it? Well, I think you can do your own space. I think you can create your own space that gives you peace, cater to yourself. And I'm going to embarrass now. This is the way I did my own space at age 14. I wanted a window over Rio de Janeiro because I was in love with Rio de Janeiro, so I drew it up there. And so when I was studying, I was like, okay, I can look at the ocean. I know I'm in Iran. I was in India here. And I was not close to the ocean. I was in New Delhi. But I wanted that view. And so I painted it for myself. I actually drew it. So you can attempt to create your own space that makes sense with you. And nowadays, I'm applying the same kind of ideas to the design we're doing at Pullman and the design I'm leading. And this is actually a building that's coming up. It's going to open on February 21st, right there at Georgia Tech. It's a people place. It's actually an office tower, but it doesn't look like an office tower. There's a big plaza at the base. There's a lot of space for people to gather, linger. Throughout the tower, there's places that people can actually walk all the tower up on a spiral staircase, and at every floor, every atrium has different kind of activities. And what we did is there is a staircase that goes along that facade. And what we did was create many different spaces for people to gather, because I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about the people, the students, which is Georgia Tech, and the professors that need to find their own space in which they feel calm. They feel like they can be confident. And by providing many different types of spaces, you will find the one you like. And maybe just customize it to yourself. So this is the spirit that we did this building with. All those dots represent something fun, something special in an otherwise very boring office building. And obviously, because I'm from Italy, I had to put a soccer field on top. And so, and so we actually decided that a soccer field would be a good idea to break all the barriers between students and CEOs of industries, so they can play together and work on a tournament, and at lunchtime discuss great ideas. You bring innovation, and the CEOs are looking at you as like a source for innovation, and they will invest in you. So this is what the space is about. Then we're designing other buildings with the same kind of activity just next to them. A lobby space that it's kind of like this TED Talk kind of space. It's really an extension of the streets. An hotel in San Diego, which has a lot of public spaces open to the people. And then this is again in Seattle, again concentrated and really focused on spaces for people. That's where we all start our designs. Where are the people? And really is because the architecture is a way for the people to build their own world. We have that world, but we are building our own world. And this is a clear example how the architecture defined the top of this mountain. It kind of rises from the mountain. The people built it to their needs, and the needs are safety and shelter. Those are the basic needs. And in that sense, architecture, when it goes from the basic safety and shelter to this, I think this really brings peace. When you are able to build an environment that is organically integrated with the world, with the natural environment. So I'm going to close with a little story that brings us to Florence, Italy, as a story that I learned from my grandma, which lived during World War II. And then I actually looked for it and confirmed. And it's a story that unfortunately talks about this destruction that happened when the Nazis were retreating to go back to Germany, and the Allies were coming from the south up. As they were going back to Germany, they were destroying every bridge to avoid the Ally to come in. And with that, a lot of art, a lot of architecture. But turns out that in Florence, this is a destruction. That is Florence, destruction of one of the bridges. In Florence, Hitler, which did so many atrocities, as we know, visited Florence in 1943, before the end of the war, and conveyed, apparently, this is the story, conveyed to one of his generals to say, you know what, Florence is too beautiful to be destroyed. So do whatever you can to save what you can. And that, to me, is a proof that architecture can actually go beyond the boundaries and really, really even touch people like Hitler. And it's because of that this bridge in Florence was not destroyed. This is Ponte Vecchio, which was the only one that the Nazi Germans did not destroy, and we can still admire today. Thank you. Questions? Go.
Yeah, so do you want to stay up here? And
Oh, sure.
Yeah, all right, sounds good.
Okay. Far away.
All right, so yeah, thank you so much for the talk. It was very interesting. One thing I wanted to ask about was if you, say, were tasked with designing the perfect building in terms of peacefulness, if you were optimizing solely for a person wanting to find peace in your building, what would that building look like? And does such a building even exist? Can you even optimize just for finding peace?
It's a question that has no answer, because the answer is within the person who is commissioning the building. The first rule of architecture is don't draw anything. The first rule is to listen to what your client or the people who are going to use the building want, and so you listen to the clients, you listen to the indirect clients. So there is the client who asks a certain program, but then there's people that are not part of that, because every building is in the built environment. Everybody's affected. So your responsibility as an architect is towards your client, but is also towards the community that experiences that building in every way, aesthetically or programmatically. And with that, I think that the real answer is we don't know. We have to listen to what they want and then put that into the context of the urban setting or the environment, and who knows what comes out.
Thank you. One other question was, you touched on music
Yes.
in your talk, and I was wondering if you think that beyond architecture and music, that other forms of art and expression might also be useful vehicles for finding peace.
Absolutely.